During the 1980s, Benjamin Netanyahu became good friends with American real estate developers Charles Kushner and Fred Trump. Kushner's son, Jared, went on to marry Fred's granddaughter, Ivanka Trump. Jared has been talking about the valuable real estate in Gaza for a few years.
In Gaza's waterfront property, it could be very valuable.
In May of 2024, the Jerusalem Post publishes an image of Netanyahu's Gaza 2035 vision. In October of 2024, candidate Trump said that Gaza could be better than Monaco.
It could be better than Monaco. It has the best location in the Middle East, the best water, the best everything. It is the best. I've said it for years. I mean, it could be the most beautiful place. The weather, the water, the whole thing, the climate. It could be so beautiful.
On his inauguration day, President Trump began discussing Gaza in terms of valuable real estate.
You know, Gaza is interesting. It's a phenomenal location. On the sea, the best weather. You know, everything's good. It's like some beautiful things could be done with it, but it's very interesting. But some fantastic things could be done with Gaza.
How do you see the future in governance for Gaza?
Well, it depends. I can't imagine you could have, well, you certainly can't have the people that were there. Most of them are dead.
On February 4th, he referred to Gaza as the Riviera of the Middle East.
Everybody I've spoken to loves the idea of the United States owning that piece of land, developing and creating thousands of jobs with something that will be magnificent. I don't want to be cute. I don't want to be a wise guy, but the Riviera of the Middle East, this could be something that could be this could be so magnificent.
On February 26th, Trump posted a bizarre AI video of Trump Gaza.
Trump Gaza, shining bright, golden future, a brand new life.
On April 7th, Trump describes Gaza as incredible oceanfront property.
Well, you know how I feel about the Gaza Strip. I think it's an incredible piece of important real estate, and I think it's something that we would be involved in, but, you know, having a peace force like the United States there, controlling and owning the Gaza Strip would be a good thing.
On July 14th, Trump referred to Israel's 2005 removal of its ground troops and settlements from the Gaza Strip as one of the worst real estate deals ever made.
I call it the Gaza Strip, one of the worst real estate deals ever made. They gave up the oceanfront property, one of the worst deals ever made.
On September 17th, Israeli Finance Minister Smotrich claimed the deal to rebuild Gaza was on Trump's desk and described it as a real estate bonanza.
There is a business plan built by the most professional people, which is on President Trump's desk. How this thing turns into a real estate bonanza, I'm not joking, it pays for itself. By the way, I started negotiations with the Americans, and I'm saying this seriously now because I'm also demanding. After all, we paid a lot of money for this war, so we need to share. How do we make percentages on land marketing later in Gaza? But now, no, not joking, the demolition phase, which is always the first phase in urban renewal, we did. Now we need to build.
Trump has chosen war criminal Tony Blair to oversee the rebuilding of Gaza. And on September 24th, the Central Synagogue in Manhattan explained how the gods demand human blood for humanity to survive.
The greatest lie humanity tells itself is that we have outgrown human sacrifice. We call it by different names now and make our offering to different gods. We offer young men we call soldiers, as if the designation means that their mothers cry less when they die. We call masses of humanity collateral damage and turn our eyes away from the pictures of their lifeless bodies as we sip our morning coffee. And the truth is, we don't do it because we are heartless. We do it because we believe that it is necessary for the world to keep running. We do it because we believe that the gods whose favor we so desperately seek, freedom, security, prosperity, flourishing, that they demand blood as the price of their favor. We do it because we cannot see any other choice. When Abraham prepares to sacrifice Isaac, he is just accepting the same bargain of blood we still accept today, that some need to die for the world to flourish.
Greg Reese reporting.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Diamond Report Live. Hope you guys are doing fine out there on a Sunday night, 10:05 p.m. on 10/5/25. So how about that video? I thought that was a pretty interesting one. Greg Reese Report, as we tend to start out the show with, and I think he always has some really good things to say every week. And note one of the comments from one of the people being interviewed there. The guy said, "We paid a lot of money for this war." And I think that pretty much says it all, doesn't it? Anyway, yeah, speaking of which, it looks like they're trying to keep the war ratcheted up as much as they possibly can. So that's what we're going to look at tonight, at least for starters. And then we're going to look at all of the news headlines that we can come across. I pulled up some really interesting things to take a look at tonight. So sit back and relax, and we'll talk about the news and see what's going on in this wacky world. I do think that we are indeed living in the end times, and I think that this show tonight will probably help convince you of that, just based on all of the crazy stuff going on, if you weren't already there, of course. So hello and welcome. My name is Doug Diamond. I will be your host tonight for as long as you want to hang out with me here. And then note that we're on 3 live streams tonight, as usual. We're on Rumble Live, of course. You can find us at Diamond Disc on Rumble, and then also Diamond Disc on YouTube, which we mentioned last week. We got the YouTube channel recovered back, and it does seem to be functioning fine. They have rolled off about 300 subscribers on that channel, and the number does continue to go down, but that's just something YouTube does. They play games like that. So welcome to everyone watching on the Diamond Disc channel on YouTube as well as Rumble. And then, of course, the backup channel, which used to be the main channel, Take It to the Lord in Prayer, End Times Dates on YouTube as well. So hello and welcome, and hope you guys have had a good week this week. And let's have a look at Hal's website, halturnerradioshow.com. This is actually from a few days ago now, but I still think it's something worth mentioning because he's calling it imminent, and I do think that there's probably some truth to that. Iran goes on military alert, says hostilities with Israel and U.S., quote, imminent. Let's hope that's not true, but, you know, they do like their wars. The Islamic Republic of Iran Army and the IRGC are on high alert, with Iranian media and officials warning of an imminent confrontation with the U.S. and Israel. 2 peas in a pod, as always. And then he says, developing story, check back. President Trump just signed an executive order. Any attack on Qatar, or Qatar, however you want to pronounce it, equals a direct threat to the U.S. Figure that one out. Any attack on Qatar is a direct threat to the U.S. I guess because we have so many bases over there. Is that why? In Qatar. Remember, the largest U.S. airbase in the Middle East is in Qatar, and in the last 24 hours, this was right around the 1st of October, dozens of American fighter jets and refueling tankers have been shifted eastward, many landing at this other airbase. This isn't routine diplomacy. It looks like the U.S. setting the legal and military stage for an Iranian strike that could come from Qatari soil. So how about that? Anyways, yeah, we'll see what unfolds here, but something to keep an eye on. And this is kind of another piece of that same puzzle, although this has more to do with Russia-Ukraine. Lithuania told its citizens to start building bunkers, quote, just in case. So if you weren't familiar where Lithuania is, here it is right here, situated very, very close to Russia. And of course, just north of Ukraine a bit. Lithuania has launched a nationwide just-in-case campaign, complete with shelters, evacuation drills, and do-it-yourself bunker plans. Over 6,400 shelters are being prepped to cover half of the population, while officials race to turn basements into blast-safe zones in under 12 hours. Wonder why. It's not full panic mode yet, but when your neighbors are Belarus, right here, and Kaliningrad, which is this little sliver right in here, unmarked on this map, A little paranoia goes a long way. Government is telling people, hope for peace, but plan for Putin. So there you go. Lithuania, I believe, is a NATO country. So anyway, yeah, they're going to have some shelters, some bomb shelters for their people, unlike folks here in the U.S. We get 0 shelters. Unless, of course, you can afford to build one on your own. Otherwise, you're just, totally out of luck. All right. Well, anyways, I thought I would bring those two up just because I thought that was worth mentioning for sure. That's on HalTurnerRadioshow.com. Hal does a great job, as always, has a weekly radio show that I always try and tune into. Highly recommended. All right. NeedToKnow.news. Trump says radical left's shutdown missteps opens unprecedented opportunity for mass firings of federal workers. Did you know the government was shut down? Did you even notice? I actually had to Google it to find out for sure if it was still shut down because, other than taxes, it doesn't touch my life at all. Democrats handed Trump a gift. Not only do they look stupid for trying to add $1.5 trillion to the national debt, they've opened the door for President Trump to deliver on one of his core campaign promises, cutting waste and fraud, a crusade that began with Musk and Doge, but has since lost steam. That would be because they drove a wedge between Musk and Doge, and Musk and Trump. Trump wrote on his Truth Social platform, I have a meeting today with Russ Vought of Project 2025 fame to determine which of the many Democrat agencies, most of which are a political scam, he recommends to be cut and whether or not those cuts will be temporary or permanent. I can't believe the radical left Democrats gave me this unprecedented opportunity. Pretty funny. Throwing it back in their faces. So yeah, if you didn't notice, supposedly the government is shut down, and if you don't believe me, according to Google, it says that's true. So take that for what it's worth, yes. And then, of course, you do a Google search for it, and you get all of the trusted sources like CNN and USA Today and CBS and Reuters and BBC. Yes. Anyway, government shutdown clock apparently on the whitehouse.gov site. Anyway, I thought that was kind of funny just because, who even notices that they're closed for business? It would be nice, just stay closed. And I was going to ask you guys, too, let me know in chat, are your skies clear right now? Are you seeing them heavily geoengineered, chemtrailed right now? I've noticed that our skies are pretty clear lately. I wonder if it has to do with the old government shutdown, you suppose? I don't know. Just a thought. I've seen some other people on X saying essentially the same thing. All right, NeedToKnow.news. Israel pays U.S. influencers over $7,000 per post to shape opinions in its favor. $7,000 per post. What do you do for a living? I know I don't post for Israel. I guess I'd be getting rich if I were. All right, Israel PM Bibi has acknowledged that his government treats social media as a weapon against criticism of Israel. He said that the most consequential tool was the purchase of TikTok by Zionist Larry Ellison, which we talked about that a week or two ago. Yes, that did happen. The co-founder of Oracle and a large donor to the Israeli Defense Force. Ellison and his son are also acquiring Paramount, as in Paramount Pictures, CBS, and CNN. Candace Owens, among other critics, points out that Zionists now own large holdings in American media and intend to use propaganda to shape American opinion. Well, they will continue to and ramp it up. They were already doing that. Charlie Kirk supporters, young Christian and conservative males in college and universities, are an important demographic to Israel because it needs them to fight their wars and for future financial support as the young men come up in the world. Very true. Last month, it was revealed that the Israeli government signed a $600,000 contract with American PR firm SKDK to use bot farm auto replies that post 24 hours a day, influencer coaching, and targeted media outreach to, quote, flood the zone of social media. Coordinated social media replies, influencer testing, and placements with outlets like the BBC reshape public conversation so that elections and policies benefit who? Not the United States. Only Israel. Yeah, and then many of you guys have probably seen this clip where Bibi was asked about all of that, and he said, yeah, we're going to go after X now as well. And apparently there's some pretty big accounts that are losing blue check marks and things like that on X now. So I guess Elon is falling for the censorship. So anyway, that will be interesting to see how that plays out exactly, but know that I will never take a dime from any Israel people, but I have such a small audience that it wouldn't really matter anyway. They would never offer it. So, but, you know, many of the channels out there that you guys watch, I'm sure they are getting those questions, like, you know, will you take X amount of dollars for posting pro-Israel content? You won't find that here. That is for sure. If it were actually something that I believed in, that would be different. But of course, you know, paid propaganda is certainly not one of those things. So it just kind of shows to go yet where we are in the world right now as far as Israel having to pay influencers to say nice things about them. Otherwise, pretty much not going to get those nice things said. Yeah, then this is another kind of continuation of the same idea at Responsible Statecraft website. Israel is paying influencers $7,000 per post. It's probably, I'm guessing, some sort of a scale here, but I don't know. Netanyahu referred this week to a community pushing out preferred messaging in U.S. media. And boy, are they making a princely sum. Looking to see if they're saying any other numbers here. Well, there's some other numbers, but it says the firm estimated that the cohort was expected to produce 75 to 90 posts. 75 to 90 posts. Doing the math, that would be $6,143 per post on the low end. On the high end, each influencer could be making as much as $7,372 per post. Why didn't they just make it an even $6,666? That would have made a lot more sense. So anyway, where's all that money coming from? Is Israel that rich, or are they just taking our American tax dollars and funneling it into paying for pro-Israel propaganda? Most likely. Anyway, there's a couple articles on that if you guys are interested in checking that out further. But yeah, won't find that around here. That is for sure. All right, and then need-to-know.news, another article. Trump expands federal powers under, quote, domestic terrorism directive. President Trump issued National Security Presidential Memorandum 7, titled Countering Domestic Terrorism and Organized Political Violence. The directive orders federal agencies to build a far-reaching law enforcement strategy to investigate and dismantle what it calls sophisticated organized campaigns of targeted intimidation, radicalization, threats, and violence. The directive is about anticipating crimes, identifying predicate actions, and intervening before political violence occurs. Yes, so that's kind of already happening, isn't it? The FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force is directed to investigate not only violent acts, but also potential federal crimes relating to acts of recruiting and radicalizing persons. The Joint Terrorism Task Force are told to probe international and individual funders, except Israel, and officers and employees of organizations that may aid suspects. Many innocent people could fall under suspicion. The Treasury Department has ordered to trace illicit funding streams and push banks to file suspicious activity reports. How about that? There is a great potential for this to be misused. Yes, of course there is. Anyway, quite a bit more information on this particular article on needtoknow.news. Feel free to have a look at that one. But yeah, we all know that that does seem to be where it's headed. Further crackdown and further political violence and further crackdown and further political violence and further surveillance, further crackdown. That's where it's going. Invasion from within. Trump's plan to use the military in U.S. cities. Trump addressed the Joint Chiefs of Staff, his war secretary, and senior commanders, and told them, "We are under invasion from within." No different than a foreign enemy, but more difficult in many ways. His speech also included the shocking statement, quote, "I told Secretary of War Hegseth we should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for a military National Guard, but military because we're going into Chicago very soon, end quote. So there it is. In Portland, where protests against ICE have been violent at times, Trump erased the distinction between obstructing the work of federal law enforcement and lawful dissent under the First Amendment as he painted the ICE protests as a battlefield worthy of military occupation. That shift is not symbolic. The gravity of Trump's moves are hard to overestimate. They risk transforming the military from a shield against foreign attack into an instrument of domestic control, eroding the very limits meant to preserve a free republic, and setting a precedent that future presidents could exploit. Yes, and don't think they won't miss that chance when they can. So it is a slippery slope for sure, and we'll see what happens. Obviously, good things have happened in D.C. since they've done all this, but remains to be seen whether or not that is going to play out in these other cities as well. Memphis, Portland, Chicago, and some of these other cities they're talking about. So anyway, the good news is it's small numbers of troops that will be there doing the crackdown. So anyway, hopefully it won't be misused, but it's really hard to say. And again, the next president can certainly do that with no problem. And then if it wasn't the James Brown wig, Congresswoman Maxine Waters admitted Dems would shut down government unless illegals get free health care. That's what she said. Rep. Maxine Waters of California, who keeps electing this person? Again, it's just James Brown's wig. Was asked by a reporter on Tuesday if her party will prioritize the health care of illegal aliens over a government shutdown, causing the Congresswoman to lash out at her. Questioned again if Democrats are demanding health care for illegal aliens, Waters basically answered yes by saying Democrats are demanding health care for everybody. We want to save lives. We want to make sure that health care is available to those who would die but having the help of their government. Their government. But they're illegals, so it's technically not their government. President Trump slammed minority radical left Democrats for threatening to shut down the government unless they received over $1 trillion, yes, that's with a T, in spending for far-left agendas such as health care for illegals, transgender surgery for minors, keeping dead people on Medicaid rolls, reopening the border, and more. So that, if you wondered why we have a government shutdown, that is in part why. That's part of the reason. So yes, and then that interview where she's asked about that is definitely embedded here on the page, so you can check that out. Needtoknow.news. Some of the top articles on this site, we have, first one, America's crypto future comes into focus. Bitcoin, gold, land, and Lutnick. I would put a question mark by that. The stable coin of choice in the new financial system is Tether. The firm that manages all of the treasury assets of Tether is Cantor Fitzgerald, which is controlled by the family of Howard Lutnick. CF also directly owns 5% share of Tether. Cantor Fitzgerald, that's who CF is, directly owns 5% share of Tether. Lutnick is Trump's Secretary of Commerce. Tether is an asset-based company specializing in payment tokens. It has an asset tokenization division and also invests in asset tokens like gold and real estate. What is wrong with this picture? America is about to be plundered. Yeah, and the plunderers at the very top who will be rolling in all of the dough. All right, and then the next article on technocracy.news. Frankenbutter, we've mentioned this before. We can thank Bill Gates' House of Horrors for spreading it on thick. Yeah, the fake butter. There's no butter involved in this Bill Gates butter. Arch technocrat Bill Gates has figured out how to get rid of CO2. You eat it. Spread your Frankenbutter on your GMO bread, baste your synthetic hamburgers, and dip your lobsters in it. You'll have to wonder if he will figure out a way to factor in some spicy mRNA. Gates apparently thinks that man-made everything is better than anything natural. Well, you can't make a buck so much on the natural stuff, right? The state just robbed an entire crypto exchange in broad daylight. This is a disturbing turn into the technocratic state where anything that is visible and snatchable is subject to confiscation. Once anything is tokenized, it can be robbed. That includes both payment and asset tokens, and the Trump administration is setting that up, courtesy of billionaire oligarchs. Yeah, like Lutnick, we just mentioned. These technocrats are no better than the horse thieves and bank robbers in the 1800s, only the means have changed. They need to be stopped, but they are clever at covering their tracks. So yeah, anyway, those are the top 3 articles on technocracy.news. Tucker Carlson on the occult, Kabbalah, Hollywood, and more with Conrad Flynn. So it's an interview that he's got. It's embedded here, but it's also on his X account, of course. Tucker interviews Conrad Flynn, a well-connected writer and producer. We usually provide notes for these videos, but this is more of an interesting conversation. It's difficult to nail down. The foundational premise of this video, with which we agree, is that the spiritual realm is real. That the ideology of materialism has been a massive scam perpetrated on us by these satanic worshiping elites. So that is a little bit of the background here. Conrad Flynn is a writer and producer who recently launched his history-themed Substack called The Flynn Effect, which will focus on secret histories in entertainment, literature, politics, and tech. A handy commentary guide on the subjects and references in this interview will be immediately published there, meaning on his Substack. He's the grandson of Hollywood tough guy actor Robert Conrad and Hollywood nice guy publicist Harry Flynn. So anyway, that is, I guess, the most recent Tucker interview. And here's the outline of that interview. Some of the subject matter covered. Is the elite class involved in occult activity? What really is the occult? Is there a link between AI and demons? Are drugs a portal to the demonic? Is technology being used for evil? What is Kabbalah? Is there demonic influence in music? Is war a product of demonic influence? So lots of interesting subject matter here, huh? The deadly AI dilemma, the Kabbalah tree of life. What is the Antichrist? What is the mark of the beast? The spiritual aspects of AI. Have we ever tried to excavate the ruins of Babylon? How to spot the Antichrist? And how to avoid the mark of the beast? Which I don't think will be a barcode on your forehead, by the way. But they have to show it somehow. Anyway, I say all that to say that Tucker is doing some really interesting interviews. And I will say this, stay tuned for a very interesting interview coming up with Mr. Carlson. Probably, hopefully, will be published at some point this week or probably within the next 2 weeks. I don't really know their schedule. We don't really have that for sure. But I will say this, it is someone that I work with who Mr. Carlson has just recently interviewed. I can say that much. So anyway, stay tuned for that. I think that will be really good exposure. So we will see when all that happens. And of course, we'll be, posting links and sharing information. So make sure you're on our Substack list. And if you care about using the QR code, that is exactly what is up there in the corner. If you scan that with your smartphone or semi-smartphone, whichever you might have, it should take you to the Substack page. So that is diamonddisc.substack.com, which is also mentioned in the crawler across the bottom. But make sure you're on that list if you're not already, and we'll try to alert you when Tucker's interview's up and many, many other things. So you'll just get an email drop from us at some point. So anyway, we do that a few times per week anyway. All right, another Liberty Beacon article I guess I pulled up that I had forgotten that I did. Freedom shirts. Well, they were banned. Freedom shirts were banned in this Kansas elementary public school. And take one look at her hair. That pretty much says all that you need to know. Freedom shirts, like the one Charlie had on. Kansas elementary public school. The wearing of shirts reading freedom have become popular after the assassination of Charlie. An elementary school in Kansas has raised a novel question under the First Amendment, whether the freedom of speech includes the right to use the word freedom. According to some media reports, Arbor Creek Elementary principal Melissa Snell stopped the wearing of T-shirts reading freedom, which have become popular after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. The move is clearly a violation under the First Amendment, in my view, according to Jonathan Turley, and he is a pretty well-known attorney. Libs of TikTok posted an email exchange between Arbor Creek Elementary principal Snell and an unnamed individual in which Snell confirmed the ban. The email states, "I just want to make sure that you have told your staff not to wear those freedom shirts to school anymore. Thank you." So there you go. She is banning it because she doesn't like it. So some further information here as well, and some, I guess, video clips from various things. And yeah, again, you can kind of tell her politics just by looking at her. They don't really hide what they're doing, do they? Anyway, elementary school students are no longer able to wear freedom t-shirts. A little ironic, isn't it? A bit 1984-esque, too. All right, and then Daily Signal. Breaking, Kash Patel's FBI cuts all ties to the SPLC, Southern Poverty Law Center, and also the ADL. Both. So even though I feel like Kash Patel has really not done anything much worthwhile, I think this you could chalk up as a positive, at least hopefully on the surface it seems that way. The FBI has confirmed that it severed all ties to the Southern Poverty Law Center, a far-left activist group that puts conservatives and Christians on a hate map. Yes, we interviewed on Lost Arch Radio, back when we were doing new shows of that, we interviewed Dr. Bill Warner many, many times on the show. He was a very well-known teacher of understanding Islam, and he wasn't Muslim at all. He was just a guy here in Nashville who I feel like is probably one of the best people that could explain Islam for exactly what it is. And guess what? He was one of the top people on the Southern Poverty Law Center's hate map. And he was just a little old guy who was just teaching based on the books that he'd written. So no hate involved. But when you're telling the truth, they call that hate. So putting conservatives and Christians on the hate map along with the Ku Klux Klan chapters, and hate map has been inspired by at least one terrorist attack against a conservative organization. So their own hate map has caused violence. Imagine that. The Southern Poverty Law Centers long ago abandoned civil rights work and turned into a partisan smear machine. Director Patel told the Daily Signal in a statement Friday their so-called hate map has been used to defame mainstream Americans and even inspire violence. That disgraceful record makes them unfit for any FBI partnership, Patel added. So that's good news. SPLC and FBI no longer joined at the hip, and is talking about how they also apparently had their own hate map pointed at Turning Point USA and Charlie Kirk as well. So it's good that SPLC has been reined in as far as that goes, and also the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, which I just call the Defamation League because that's what they're really good at. But they've cut ties to the ADL as well. That's all happened in the last few days. So I think that's good news, although I still don't trust Kash Patel because, you know why? He lied under oath, which we've covered multiple times on this broadcast. So this is another odd thing, and I guess further proof that the transgender people can pretty much get away with literally everything. Transgender man who planned to assassinate Brett Kavanaugh will serve just 8 years. Government to appeal after Biden-appointed judge acknowledges this person, Rosk, committed terrorism, but erases most of the terrorism enhancement in the sentence because they like him and he agrees with their politics. They might as well just say that. The man who planned to kill Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh in 2022 in an attempt to change the court's balance of power was sentenced by a Joe Biden-appointed judge on Friday to 97 months in prison, granting the defendant's request for an 8-year sentence. So how about that? The defendant asks the judge for the sentence length, and the judge grants it. So what's that tell you? Judge Deborah Boardman, a Joe Biden appointee to Maryland federal court, acknowledged that there was a whopping 22-year difference between that and the minimum of 30 years called for by federal sentencing guidelines. So, wow. So it should have been 30 years. He got 8. 8. Because, again, the judge likes his politics, and also, I would add, because he wasn't successful in taking out Kavanaugh. If he had been successful, then you'd probably be looking at less than 8 years from this judge, in my opinion. All right. Yahoo News. Trump tells Israel to stop bombing Gaza, saying Hamas is ready for peace. Which means that Israel probably bombed them again right away. Let's see. Trump told Israel on Friday to immediately stop bombing Gaza after Hamas agreed to release hostages and some other terms in a U.S. plan to end the war, but vexing issues like disarmament appeared unresolved. Hamas on Friday issued its response to Trump's 20-point plan after the president gave the Palestinian militant group until Sunday to accept or face grave consequences. Yeah, which just means more of the same, because it seems to me like they've already been facing grave consequences, right? And then this one from Yahoo News as well. Apple drops the Ice Block app from the App Store after the DOJ raises safety risks. So this app is something that we've talked about before on the broadcast. It was a kind of like a geolocator of sorts. Apple has removed an app from its App Store that alerts users if ICE agents are near their location after complaints from the DOJ said that it put their agents' safety at risk. Well, no duh, right? Attorney General Bondi earlier Thursday ordered the Justice Department to have Apple remove Ice Block after agents have been doxxed and threatened, specifically in the wake of a shooting last week at an ICE detention site in Dallas. We reached out to Apple today demanding that they remove Ice Block from their App Store, and Apple did so. So Apple was a little afraid of Pam Bondi. I'm sort of surprised. But they did comply. You know, during 2020, when the Summer of Love was happening, after the Floyd situation happened and all the riots started, Parler was almost instantly taken down everywhere and said that it was a danger because, you know, people were commenting and making plans on that app, and so it was removed everywhere. And they just did it. They just, you know, totally removed it on their own without anyone demanding that they do so from the Department of Justice. So they just voluntarily did it. So anyway, speaking of interesting apps, this one came out a few days ago, AJN Live, which is InfoWars, rebrand, and then keeping in mind that there's a good chance that they could actually be shut down this coming week or at some point this month. That seems to be what many people are saying, and then of course they've dodged the bullet many times. So we'll see what happens, but currently the app that you can use to access InfoWars, which is now called AJN Live, if and when they get shut down, is currently number 8 in the news category on the App Store. However, it's been as high as number 1. It was number 1 for a while. And then it kind of bounces around between, you know, somewhere in the top 10. So that is interesting. We'll see what happens, but they're calling in the people to make the final decisions here pretty soon, I guess. So it's not looking too good for Alex and company, but they have backup plans upon their backup plans. So I definitely think they will remain on the air. It's just that the name InfoWars will be rebranded into a comedy brand, basically. It's what they're going to try and do. And wear his skin. They're going to wear the Alex Jones skin and turn him into even more of a straw man than they already have, as far as taking what he's always been about and transforming that into something that he's never been about, and then saying this is the real Alex Jones, and then silencing him. So that's where they're headed with it, and this is just another step in that process. So I guess if you're an InfoWars fan, you might want to grab this app, AJN Live. And I do know that the Android version will be available soon. Right now, it is only available in iOS version from the App Store. Anyway, check that out if you guys are interested. All right, need to know.news. Trump's Gaza plan, peace as control, not accountability. The White House has released a 20-point document titled President Donald J. Trump's comprehensive plan to end the Gaza conflict. It would install a transitional governance structure under a board of peace. How about that? Headed by Trump and former British Prime Minister Tony Blair. The plan outlines ceasefire terms, staged withdrawals, prisoner exchanges, and international administration. However, Gaza's people are cast not as survivors of nearly 2 years of bombardment, but as subjects requiring de-radicalization, quote unquote. Destroyed homes are reimagined as redevelopment projects under international management. What is framed as peace is, in substance, a program of control and investment. Detractors say it is designed to manage Gaza from outside rather than allow Palestinians to decide their own future. Oh, yes, can't have that. Not at all. The action in Gaza is not merely war, but the systematic destruction of a people, which I think pretty much the whole world knows this. So, yes, I did find it very interesting that the whole peace plan and the whole process that was recently all agreed to by all these different countries in the Middle East didn't involve actually bringing in the Palestinian state into the negotiation process. They just created it all and then said, basically, sign here, and handed it to them. So, yeah, that seems to be how they think peace is negotiated. Yeah, Hamas agrees to release hostages. Trump calls on Israel to stop the bombing, which we mentioned already. In response to Hamas's statement agreeing to release the hostages and entering into negotiations, Trump called on Israel to immediately cease bombing in Gaza. Do you suppose they will actually do that? I'm thinking probably not. So that one is on Headline USA. And then a few hours later, Middle East, Gaza strikes reported ahead of Egypt talks. So they're still striking Gaza even though Trump is asking them to stop. Why don't you just pull the funding? How about that? Start with the money. That might be nice. But no, he won't do that. All right, this article says, fresh Israeli strikes were reported in Gaza as negotiators from Israel and the U.S. and Hamas head to Egypt for talks. Meanwhile, Syria is holding its first elections since the ouster of Bashir Assad. So yes, the guy running, of course, is if he's not voted in, then you're probably going to lose your life, is my guess. So yes, you have to vote for him. Trump suggests first phase of his Gaza peace plan should be completed this week. U.S. President Trump has praised discussions between Hamas negotiators and mediating countries ahead of the talks in Egypt on Monday. The meetings in the Red Sea resort of Sharm el-Sheikh will focus on Trump's 20-point peace plan for Gaza, which he unveiled last week alongside PM Benjamin Netanyahu. Trump suggested that the first phase of the plan could be completed in the coming week. That of course is if Hamas decides to take part in this, and I'm sort of doubting that they will, but we'll see what happens. Yes, I think Trump wants his Nobel Peace Prize, don't you? Seems like he sure does. DW.com is where this article is. Headline USA. Thought I would point this one out. North Carolina governor signs criminal justice bill into law after Ukrainian refugee's death, meaning Irina Zarutska. Democrat governor from North Carolina signed into law on Friday a criminal justice measure that the state's Republican-controlled legislature approved in response to the stabbing death of a Ukrainian refugee and on a Charlotte commuter train, even while opposing provisions within or wishing for others left out. Governor Josh Stein said he signed the bill because it alerts the judiciary to take a special look at people who may pose unusual risks of violence before determining their bail. That is a good thing. Yes, but they had the guy that killed her at least 14 different times ahead of her actually being murdered by him, and they let him go every single time. So I'm not sure that it actually will stop much, but we'll see. At least they're trying something, the Republican legislature. So I don't know. Anyway, Headline USA on that one. And this one too, Netflix loses billions after Elon Musk calls for boycott after the tranny indoctrination that they've been pushing lately. Billionaire super genius Elon Musk recent calls to cancel Netflix have cost the streaming company billions of dollars and dropped subscriptions, according to recent estimates. Following Musk's October 1 post protesting the promotion of transgender ideology in children's shows, the company saw its total value drop by around 5%, which according to estimates was somewhere between $15 million and $25 million. Wow. How about that? They effed around and found out, said the viral post from the Inevitable West account on X. So anyway, then here's a little meme about what's actually going on. Got the Trojan horse, Netflix, and your kids, and the transgender woke agenda. Yep, bring them right in. Well, you know, I think most people know, especially people that pay attention to such things, is that Netflix ain't that great. And they've just gotten worse over the years. So anyways, that one's on Headline USA. Feel free to look at that one. And then headlines on Information Liberation. Israel paying up to $4.1 million to brainwash Americans with VR. Target churches with geofencing ads. New FARA filings reveal that the Israeli government is paying an American firm up to $4.1 million to brainwash Christians from a virtual reality October 7th experience, quote unquote. How about that? And target them with geofencing propaganda ads at their churches. Geofencing works, it's pretty interesting. They use satellites to target certain areas, like you can target an entire city, you can target just a building within that city. And that's what they're doing with certain ads. So if you walk through the geofence, in other words, you walk past the line, you'll get targeted ads, whatever they want you to see, on your mobile device. So that's what they're talking about, geofencing. Next article on Information Liberation. Trump, Hamas ready for peace. Israel must immediately stop bombing Gaza. Please stop. Please stop, Bibi. Instead of just ordering him to stop and cutting the money off, he's just saying, please, please, please. Anyway, Senator Ted Cruz applauds Brad Parscale for taking millions of dollars from Israel to push their agenda. Well, of course he does. Cruz loves everything about Israel. FBI cuts ties with ADL. So that was the other one that we mentioned a little bit ago. Further information on that if you're interested. Charlie Kirk described himself as a surrogate for Israel in private letter to Netanyahu. Yes, only Bibi saw it though. But yeah, it's true. Charlie Kirk described himself as a surrogate for Israel in a May 2nd letter he sent to Bibi, which has only just now been released. Yeah. Zionists call for a massive investment in the information war at the JNS, Jewish News Syndicate Conference in New York City. And it goes on. Quite a bit here on Information Liberation. That's just a few of the top headlines that are the most recent ones. And then RT, Hamas denies agreeing to disarm. Palestinian militant group has denied media reports, claiming it will surrender its weapons to an international body. That cannot go well if that happens. But anyway, thought that was an interesting headline. Palestinian militant group Hamas on Sunday denied media reports suggesting it was ready to disarm immediately to implement the Trump ceasefire plan. Earlier in the day, several media outlets reported, citing anonymous sources, that the group had agreed to hand over its arsenal to a Palestinian-Egyptian body under international supervision and has informed the U.S. of its decision. However, Hamas was quick to deny the fabricated claims, stating its position is communicated only through official channels. What was published is baseless and aims to distort the position and confuse public opinion, the group said. Yeah, well, that's the way they work, these so-called peace deals, isn't it? Anyway, that is a RT article. Trump tells Netanyahu, "You're always so effing negative." The U.S. president has criticized Bibi on Gaza's peace talks, according to outlet sources. He's always so negative. That would be because he hates anyone that's not Israeli, pretty much. Trump has harshly rebuked Bibi over his reaction to Hamas's statement concerning the Gaza peace plan. Hamas has agreed to free its hostages under a U.S. proposal. Did not mention plans to disarm, but later on Sunday, sources in the movement said the group was preparing to do so, which we just, in an article a minute ago, stated that that was not true. Anyway. Let's see. Trump reportedly called Netanyahu on Friday to discuss the Hamas move, which he saw as good news. The Israeli leader felt differently, telling the U.S. president this is nothing to celebrate and it doesn't mean anything. I don't know why you're always so effing negative. This is a win. Take it, Trump reportedly replied. So, Trump and Bibi kind of getting into it. But it won't matter. Bibi is still the U.S. president, not Trump. I thought this one was kind of interesting. Israel denies torturing Greta Thunberg. And I'm looking at this picture thinking, surely that is an AI-generated photo of her because it's just too bad. I don't think she's that ugly. She's got like a zigzag bowl cut in front. I just don't think that's a real picture. Who knows? Maybe she really is. According to activists, the Swedish climate campaigner was harshly dealt with after being arrested en route to Gaza. Israel has rejected claims that it mistreated Swedish climate campaigner Greta Thunberg and others, members of the global Samud flotilla, as brazen lies. Meanwhile, the Israeli government minister in charge of prisons has said that he is proud the activists are being treated like terrorists. So who to believe? Fellow activists and lawyers have claimed that Thunberg, along with others, was subjected to torture and harsh treatment in an Israeli prison after their Gaza aid flotilla was intercepted and they were arrested. Thunberg and fellow activists were attempting to breach the blockade of Gaza by sea, but were stopped by the Israeli Navy. Most detainees were taken to the Ketziat prison in the Negev Desert, and more than 130 have since been deported to Turkey. Wow. So the flotilla, I guess, maybe is no more. I don't know. So, pretty interesting. But they're denying torturing old Greta. Who knows? Everybody's lying, if you ask me. NASA shuts down as 3I Atlas reaches Mars. Latest images and updates. So I've mentioned this guy a few times. I think he has really good information. It's real scientific-based information on the whole 3I Atlas thing as it approaches. And feel free to look at this if you guys want. It's a pretty short video. It's under 20 minutes. So we'll link to this in the Substack post, which, by the way, you can get to from the QR code in the upper corner, up there, upper left corner. Or you could just go to diamonddisc.substack.com and sign up totally free. And it's a good way to get some of the links and videos and different things like that that I will be posting probably at some point on Tuesday when I send that out. Of course, you can look it up on your own as well. And then this one I thought was kind of interesting. Inside climatenews.org, in first address on climate change, Pope Leo signals continuity with Pope Francis and opposition to Trump. There were a lot of people sort of singing this guy's praises when he first got in there. The pontiff called on people all over the world to demand action on climate from their governments. Right-wing pundits in the U.S. immediately denounced his message as, quote, woke. So they've got him standing by a huge ball of ice here. I guess that's probably one of the, chemically ice-nucleated hailstones that's fallen somewhere. No, I'm just joking. Pope Leo delivers a speech with a chunk of glacial ice during a climate conference on Wednesday. It looks like he's doing the Vulcan mind meld with the glacial ice. Pope Leo on Wednesday spoke before a slowly melting chunk of glacial ice in Vatican City in his first address on climate change. Yeah, I mean, well, if they're going to bring it inside, of course it's going to melt. You would think they would realize that. Anyway, the whole point here is that it appears that he is pulling a Francis on him. So he's going for the climate change after all. So, pretty interesting. We'll see where that one goes. Inside Climate News is where that is. All right, and then Independent. Now, there was a lot of a lot of talk about the big meeting, the meeting of the minds in D.C., and in Quantico, I guess, in earlier in the week last week, whenever all of the generals and admirals were there, hundreds of them. Hegseth ramps up war against leakers by introducing lie detector tests and NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, to Pentagon. Defense Secretary ordered hundreds of admirals and generals to a meeting in Quantico, Virginia, earlier this week. Yeah, that was Tuesday last week. The Pentagon plans to introduce mandatory non-disclosure agreements and lie detector tests for thousands of people. Under Hegseth, the Pentagon plans to require that some staff sign NDAs that prohibit the release of non-public information without approval or through a defined process, and subsequently take random polygraph tests, according to a draft memo. The protection of sensitive information is paramount to our national security and the safety of our warfighters and the preservation of critical decision space for our senior leaders. So I think that's kind of interesting just because obviously they're trying to stop the leaking, which I think that's good. However, I think you could also say that they didn't just bring those 800 or however many hundreds of admirals and generals to D.C. just for a talk about DEI, which that was the whole public broadcast part that was talked about was Hegseth and later Trump talking about how they're going to get rid of DEI and they're going to kind of revert back to more of a hardcore stand on bringing people into the military and having actual physical fitness be involved and all these different things. But that can't possibly be why they brought all those hundreds of people from all over the world to just hear that speech. That's really not even plausible. So to me, it seems to be something a little more along the lines of, well, we can't possibly know exactly what was talked about, but when you see reports like this about taking lie detector tests and signing NDAs, it sounds to me like they were probably told some other information that we are not going to be privy to. My guess is it's that war is coming very soon, and then whatever details go with that. So anyway, that is on theindependent.com. That's where that one is. And then this Daily Mail article, we always have to have the plane crash stories on the Diamond Report. It's never a normal show if we don't have plane crashes. Well, this is luckily not a crash. It's a situation where two planes collided at LaGuardia. So this just happened. Two Delta Airlines passenger planes collided on Wednesday in a horror accident that ripped the wing off of one jet. So yet again, ripped the whole wing off. No one was hurt though, so that's good. Anyways, just further proof that they don't know what they're doing, apparently. And this one was pilot error or probably some sort of an issue with the tower. I don't know. Versus failure in hardware as far as the plane goes, which oftentimes that's the main problem. So yes, planes colliding in LaGuardia. All right, Wise Wolf Media. This is an interesting Substack. We've talked about this one before. The False Messiah of 1666. How a secret society's dark rituals still influence the world today. The forbidden mysticism that connects Sabbatai Zevi, Aleister Crowley, and the number 666. And of course, they've used AI to take this painting and make it look like this guy's looking at us. Pretty creepy, huh? 19th century Italy, a well-respected physician and scholar stands alone in a gallery after hours studying a Renaissance masterpiece. The museum is silent. His footsteps echo on marble floors. Then something happens that will haunt him for decades. The figure in the painting turns its head like this. Not metaphorically, not in his imagination. He runs from the gallery, never to return. Dr. J.J. Wilkinson documented this encounter in his private journals, later shared with a small circle of theologians and researchers. He's been studying art for decades, a rational, learned man with a fascination for the strange and occultic. Yet that night in Florence shattered his understanding of reality. What he didn't know was that Renaissance Italy had been a crossroads for occult knowledge flowing from the East. And he goes on to talk about Kabbalistic scholars and channeling and all kinds of stuff. So if you guys are interested in this, I think it's pretty good Substack. Quite a bit here. So that is Wise Wolf on Substack. And again, we'll link to this in the Substack post that I send out as well. Futurism article I came across. Mysterious object cruising through the solar system may have emitted a signal. It might have. We just don't know. To measure these properties, we should attempt to use all telescopes on Earth and in space. All of them. In 1977, the Ohio State University's Big Ear radio telescope received an unusually strong narrowband radio signal, leading to widespread excitement about the possibility of having encountered evidence of life beyond Earth. At the time, astronomer Jerry Eman spotted the highly unusual outburst in printed out records, annotating the major radio band fluctuation with the word wow in red pen, thereby giving it a memorable nickname, the wow signal. The incident has remained a mystery for decades, never spotted again in over 48 years, leaving plenty of questions in its wake. Where did it come from, and why did it only last for 72 seconds? Now, astronomer and alien hunter Avi Loeb has a wild new theory about the signal. In a new blog post, he suggested that interstellar object 3I Atlas, which is currently cruising through our solar system, could have sent the signal back in 1977, when it was still 600 times the distance between the Earth and the Sun away from us. Examining the sky coordinates of the object and the wow signal, Loeb concluded that the chance of two random directions in the sky being aligned to that level is about 0.6%. If the wow signal originated from 3I Atlas, how powerful was the transmitter? He wrote once again, raising the possibility that the object could be an artifact from an advanced extraterrestrial civilization. Or not. Anyway, kind of interesting. It, to me, is mostly interesting. The part about this story that's interesting is, what are the powers that be going to do with this story versus what it actually is. To me, it's not that interesting, honestly. But the question is, what will they use this story for? Will they use it to drum up panic or some sort of scenario where you have Project Bluebeam or something like that? That's what a lot of people are theorizing. Although I don't know. I tend to think that it probably won't be anything like that, and it's probably just a build up to a whole lot of nothing. But we'll see. We'll see. They like these sorts of stories, don't they? And it's interesting that they're now tying it to the signal that was supposedly heard back in 1977. So who knows where they're going with it. I did find that was pretty interesting, though. It's on futurism.com. All right, and then post-millennial, Erica Kirk named in Time's 100 most influential rising stars list. So now she's a rising star because her husband was murdered. Erica Kirk, the widow of Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk and new CEO of the nationwide conservative organization, has been named one of Time's 100 most influential rising stars. It does make one wonder, doesn't it? So there's more info here on this if you want to have a look. It's not a ton of info, but there's some on the post-millennial. Another Substack. This is a lady that I do follow and subscribe to her as well. She has a lot of COVID information that she puts out, but this one is really more about the whole Pfizer thing, that they have worked out this deal with Trump, and they're calling it Trump RX, which many of you guys have probably heard about. The art of the drug deal. Pfizer may funnel up to $500 million to the Trump organization via Trump RX. If anyone is still in doubt that Trump is personally and politically funded by Big Pharma, here is the proof. So if you guys want further proof of something that you most likely already know, he does like pharma, doesn't he? He does put all of his stock in what Big Pharma can do versus the natural remedies and so forth. But there's quite a bit here on this Substack post by Sasha Latipova. I guess that's how you say her last name. Anyway, Due Diligence and Art is the name of her blog on Substack. So have a look at that one. And then more about the NASA situation. NASA, of course, never a straight answer. New executive order reclassifies NASA as an intelligence and security agency. An executive order issued by Trump administration last month declares that NASA and several other U.S. government agencies will now operate primarily as intelligence and security agencies. Weird. The order states that NASA, among other agencies, will now have as a primary function intelligence, counterintelligence, investigative, and national security work. Weird. Historically, NASA has focused on space exploration, earth sciences, and scientific discovery, and I would also add lying to the public about landing on the moon. They're good at that. From sending humans into space to exploring distant planets with telescopes, spacecraft, and robotic probes, the agency has primarily operated as scientific agency, which, through public outreach, has helped to connect the American people with their place in the cosmos. By contrast, the U.S. an intelligence agency is generally responsible for collecting, analyzing, and disseminating information to inform national security decisions. So what is going on there? Why would they do that? Could it have something to do with the whole 3-eye atlas, you suppose? Anyways, so that was an interesting move, and the timing of that, I think, is the most interesting part. Why now? Thedebrief.org. Thedebrief.org is where that one is. All right, and then Martin Armstrong's site, Armstrong Economics, electronic tattoos, the forewarned mark of the beast. I don't think so, but I just wanted to mention this, and then if you guys want to look at it, feel free. But yes, Bill Gates believes that electronic tattoos will soon replace smartphone technology. This is not a dystopian fable, but an active plan set in motion by Chaotic Moon that was acquired by Accenture. Nanocapacitors that conduct electricity will be integrated into the body through these electronic or biometric tattoos that are activated by simple vital signs. I don't think they need to do all this. I mean, this is really, at this point, old technology. The new technology is nanotech, and it's injected, and we all know how. So that is kind of where they're talking about as far as where they're headed with this particular article.
Enter the so-called Podesta plan, a plan that isn't a single, neatly titled document you can Google in a heartbeat. It's the insidious undercurrent of strategies hatched by John Podesta, the longtime Clinton operative and Obama whisperer, to weaponize division, radicalize the masses, and claw back power through engineered unrest. And at its rotten heart, the Podesta plan emerges from the WikiLeaks trove of over 50,000 emails hacked from Podesta's Gmail in 2016.
This is a legitimate email. John needs to change his password immediately. So the IT team said, yes, John, reset your password at that bit.ly link. Well, they actually say reset it at myaccount.google.com, which is the right link, but he just went back to the original email and used the bit.ly link, and then he got hacked.
These weren't just chit-chat about pizza parties. They revealed a calculated machine, Podesta, as Hillary's campaign chair and founder of the left-wing think tank Center for American Progress, plotting to plant the seeds of the revolution in America. One bombshell email from 2012 penned by activist Sandy Newman to Podesta floated the idea of hijacking religious voters for a progressive uprising.
What Kirk said was dangerous. What Kirk said was racist, rooted in white supremacy, nasty, and hate-filled.
Fast forward through the leaks and you see the blueprint solidify. Coordinate with media allies to amplify outrage, fund agitators through shadowy foundations, and stoke racial and cultural fault lines to delegitimize elections. It's not about winning votes. It's about winning the narrative war, turning dissent into dynamite.
Reaction to the Trump tape?
Well, my reaction is it's disgusting. And I think people saw in real life what we've been saying for a long time. What Hillary said as far back as June is that he's unfit to be president of the United States.
Ladies and gentlemen, the president-elect of the United States, Donald John Trump.
Post-2016, as Trump stormed the gates, Podesta and his ilk didn't slink away, they doubled down. Remember James Carville, the raging Cajun himself, teaming up with Podesta and leaked chats right after the election? They schemed to paint Trump as an existential threat to minorities and immigrants, priming blue cities for secession and street-level sabotage.
Trump is a criminal. Criminals like to be around other criminals.
And a mob boss.
Yeah.
Podesta's fingerprints are everywhere, from emails coordinating with CNN's Donna Brazile to rig town halls to whispers of pressuring donors like Saudi Arabia and Qatar over ISIS funding while ignoring Clinton Foundation ties.
But most scandalous is that one of the biggest donors to the supposedly progressive team is the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, currently massacring dissidents in its own country, as well as thousands of Yemeni civilians. The Saudi regime funds the Clintons with at least tens of millions of dollars. And in 2015, the Saudi government also started paying $140,000 per month to the Podesta Group.
Now, zoom to today, and the Podesta plan isn't theory, it's fully operational. With Trump back in the saddle and the deep state reeling, sources are buzzing about a Podesta-led Democrat plan for 1,500 protests across all 50 states, scripted riots in LA, and false flags to frame Trump as a dictator, all to ignite a civil war scenario and seize power. Podesta is not just advising on climate scams like the Inflation Reduction Act's $370 billion green slush fund.
As Karine noted, we're marking the one-year anniversary of a truly transformative piece of legislation, the Inflation Reduction Act, which is the largest investment in clean energy and climate action ever in the United States, in the history of the world. But first, I want to acknowledge that today's event is coming during a time of heartbreak as the toll of extreme weather fueled by climate change is being felt across the country and the world.
Now we're just having to get the money out as fast as possible before they come in and stop it. It truly feels like we're on the Titanic and we're throwing gold bars off the edge.
He's the architect of the unrest that keeps the masses distracted while the elite consolidate. This is the Podesta Plan, orchestrated uprising, riding out into this very day. Infowars.com.
Yeah, how about that? Pretty interesting piece, I thought. Good John Brown report. So the Podesta Plan, civil war for the United States. That's where they want us to go. And they are working really hard at that, aren't they? At least at the moment. And it does seem to be where things are headed. Hopefully people won't actually fall for it. But so anyway, let's keep going here with the electronic tattoos, forewarned mark of the beast. As we mentioned before, I think that is really old technology, but it is something that people do talk about as far as that's going to be the mark of the beast and so forth. I personally do not think that's the case at all. But I could see where you could get that idea. And there's more information on this Armstrong Economics article if you want to have a look at it. And again, it will be on the Substack post that I send out later, but you guys can find it as well, armstrongeconomics.com. And then this one I thought was kind of interesting, christianpost.com. Nearly half of American adults don't believe the Bible is literally true, according to a study. How about that? Pretty sad, huh? While significant majorities of evangelicals and black Protestants and Americans in the South continue to hold to the literal belief in Scripture, a new study has found that nearly half of American adults see the Bible as a collection of helpful but ancient myths that are not literally true. How about that? A majority of Americans also believe worshiping at home alone or with their family is an acceptable replacement for attending church services, while significant minorities don't believe in the resurrection or that Jesus is even God. So that's where we are now, in case you wondered. If you keep a score at home, most people do not believe the Bible is literally true, which is part of the reason that I think that God will unveil, in his perfect timing, he will unveil the Ark of the Covenant to some degree as far as the work that Ron Wyatt did so long ago, and more importantly, the Ten Commandments. And those will be shown throughout the world, as Ron talked about. They will be shown throughout the world, and then people can decide, Are they going to believe in God and believe God's word is true? Here are the literal 10 commandments, the tablets. Or the reverse of that would be, or the opposite of that would be taking the mark of the beast. So apparently, according to Ron Wyatt, and a lot of the research that I have done on the guy, those two things will happen more or less at the same time. And, the infrastructure for the mark of the beast system is ready now. So as far as that goes, timing-wise, how does that fit in with the revealing of the 10 Commandments, the tablets, the Ark of the Covenant, and so forth? Something we've talked about on this show often. I feel like we're really close to all of that playing out, but definitely remains to be seen. So that is an interesting one, though, that most people do not believe the Bible is literally true. I am not in that group. I'm sure many of you guys are not either. Charlie Kirk wrote of his deep love for Israel in a letter to Netanyahu. I remember saying that it seemed to me that Israel was trying to co-opt his message before anybody else could. Whether or not they had a hand in his assassination definitely remains to be seen. They definitely had motive to be involved, but I don't think anyone's actually proven that they are involved quite yet. Not saying that won't happen. But so far, I personally have not seen that. Candace is kind of going down the trail a little bit of saying it was most likely a military operation, and she's kind of leaning, from what I can tell, towards some connection with Ukraine. And that's very possible, keeping in mind that at least one of the two assassination attempts, possibly both, of President Trump before he was president, were also tied to Ukraine. So it is interesting. And I haven't heard too many people talk about the fact that it could very well have been a Ukraine desire to take Charlie out. I don't know how that would work exactly, but that's kind of the direction Candace is heading in her most recent videos, I've noticed. From the desk of Charlie Kirk. So this is ostensibly the letter that he wrote to Bibi. Of course, it's all just typed. I don't know how to prove that is actually true, and whether his signature is real or not. I don't know. Who knows? But there is a letter here embedded on this New York Post article. If you can bear all of the pop-up ads, feel free to take a look at it. But I do think it's interesting that Bibi's out there saying how much Charlie loved Israel. And of course, Charlie's not around to say otherwise at this point, so that's pretty handy, isn't it? Singularity Hub article. People cannot distinguish AI voice clones from actual humans anymore. Researchers created extremely real voice clones with just 4 minutes of recordings. Yeah, and we've mentioned that on this show before. It's actually not that difficult to do. This article says the ability to synthesize realistic speech using AI has a host of applications, both benign and malicious. New research shows that today's AI-generated voices are now indistinguishable from those of real humans. AI's ability to generate speech has improved dramatically in recent years. Many services are now capable of carrying out extended conversations. Typically, these tools can both clone the voices of real people and generate entirely synthetic voices. This can make powerful AI capabilities far more accessible and raise the prospect of AI agents stepping into a range of customer-facing roles in the real world. There are also fears these capabilities are powering an explosion of voice cloning scams, where bad actors use AI to impersonate family members or celebrities in an effort to manipulate victims. Yeah, we've already seen that happen. I don't know if they mentioned that in this article or not. I don't see any mention of that. But, yeah, there was a story, I don't know, maybe a year ago now, where someone had an AI clone of this woman's daughter, and they used that on a phone call to the mom saying, we've got your daughter, saying that I've been, using the daughter's voice, saying I've been, taken hostage and you have to send this amount of money to such and such and all this stuff, when it all turned out to be fake. The daughter was actually fine. She was over at a friend's house or something, But they tried to manipulate the parent into thinking that her child was kidnapped into extorting, a bunch of money out of them. So you can see how it could go bad really fast. To test people's ability to distinguish human voices from AI-generated ones, the researchers created 40 completely synthetic AI voices and 40 clones of human voices in a publicly available dataset. They used the AI voice generator tool from startup 11 Labs, that's the name of the company, and each clone took roughly 4 minutes of voice recordings to create. They then challenged 28 participants to rate how real the voices sounded on a scale and make a binary judgment about whether they were human or AI generated. The results were published in PLOS One, which I guess is a journal. The authors found that although people could, to some extent, distinguish human voices from entirely synthetic ones, they couldn't tell the difference between voice clones and the real voices. So that is not that surprising, actually. They are really good. I've heard some good ones. And, if you know what to listen for, it's easier to tell, but it's getting harder and harder to distinguish. I will totally agree with that. Even coming from an professional audio standpoint, which is what I do for a living, the AI clone of a human voice is actually really good. And the more information you can feed AI, the better the clone is in general. So that is a Singularity Hub article. So we've got several things like that we're going to look at tonight as far as AI goes. NHS says, so NHS, the National Health Service over in the UK, says that first cousin marriage has many benefits despite birth defect risk. Yes, UK cousin marriage. And you know why we're talking about that, right? Because of the Islamic invasion of the UK. That's why we're talking about that. So the National Health Service, a publicly funded healthcare system in England, is under fire for issuing guidance that promotes first cousin marriage, touting stronger extended family support systems and economic advantages, despite clear evidence of increased risk of genetic disorders in offspring. Yeah, and if you keep it up, everybody's going to have a single-digit IQ before too long. The controversial guidance published last week by NHS was removed from the website by Monday amid growing outrage. So they were calling out, saying how great it was to marry your first cousin. Because, of course, that is what the Muslims tend to do, which is why they are so easy to manipulate by some of the people in charge over there. So, yes. Pretty wild. And not that surprising, huh? So the NHS says it is just great. You should all do it. And before long, there will be nobody left. Thought that was pretty funny. And it's sad, actually. It's a sign of the times for sure, living in the end times. Okay, this is a video that I started and didn't get to finish, but it seemed pretty interesting. Mormon church attack is connected to Charlie Kirk and more. So this is something that I mentioned last week when this church attack happened. We had the guy that drove his truck into the church and started shooting, and then the church, of course, catches fire and burns down. And remember, it was a Mormon church, and I remember saying last week that it seems like it's got to be connected to Kirk somehow, and that's what they're talking about in this video. Decoding with Cody is the channel. Decoding with a K. Decoding with Cody. So yeah, they're talking about that specific type of thing where the Mormon church attack directly connected to Charlie. So anyway, pretty weird. Anyway, I came across that just by happenstance. All right, and then Big Picture .watch is the name of this website. Digital ID, a tool of exclusion. I traveled to Chile to interview Whitney Webb, the contributing editor to Unlimited Hangout and formerly the senior investigative reporter at MIT Press News. Webb has owned a reputation as one of the most rabid researchers in independent journalism today. This interview was shot in the making of the documentary CBDCs, The End of Money. So there's a coming documentary, I guess. In this eye-opening interview, Webb discusses how there is a global push by governments worldwide to implement digital IDs based on biometrics, and how digital IDs are required to make CBDCs work. They want to move not just to a cashless society, but a cashless and cardless society. The goal is to have you pay with your face or pay with your biometrics or the palm of your hand. What's that sound like? This is already being rolled out at Amazon-owned entities. JP Morgan is piloting it for their customers, and I'm sure at some point, if you don't want to use your biometrics for those purposes, your bank will be like, sorry, you can't bank with us. Isn't that nice? I will probably be hearing that myself. Digital IDs are a key part of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, also known as, say it with me, Agenda 2030. The specific part of the Sustainable Development Goals dealing with digital IDs is with SDG 16, which they claim is about building peaceful and inclusive societies. The primary organization pushing this agenda is ID 2020 and the Digital Impact Alliance. Sounds so wonderful, doesn't it? The UN and transnational entities claim the lack of digital ID is preventing people, mainly the world's poor, from accessing essential services, whether it's banking, education, or healthcare. They call this the identity gap. Yeah, they also will call it things like underbanked and things like that. Promoters like Bill Gates and the UN claim digital IDs will enhance inclusion, but the systems are inherently exclusionary. Yeah, it's all for us, the little people. Anyway, there's quite a bit of really good information here about CBDCs and the technology where it connects with digital IDs. Thought that was pretty interesting. And there's a video embedded here too. Feel free to take a look at this one if you guys want to. Make sure you're on the Substack. I keep saying that, but it's true. All right, and then PJ Media article I found. The UN wants global oversight of artificial intelligence technologies. What could possibly go wrong? General Assembly Week at the UN seems more like a three-ring circus than a global confab of world leaders. Nearly 90 heads of state, 43 heads of government, and a crown prince all addressed the United Nations General Assembly over the past week. Dozens of NGOs looking for money, influence, and TV FaceTime crowded the lobbies and anterooms of the 4 UN buildings, hoping to get their pet project, issue, or grievance heard by an international VIP. All that was missing were the trained seals and the stale popcorn. This week, in addition to climate change, war, peace, and creation of fictitious countries, i.e. Palestine, the crisis over artificial intelligence and who would be in charge of its governance was on the agenda. The weighty matter was actually being seriously discussed by nations that don't have it but want it, nations that have it but don't want to share it, and nations that don't have enough of it and want to be able to steal what they don't have. Sounds like China. Because the challenges and opportunities are global, the responses also need to be far more comprehensive than the fragmented and siloed solutions that have been enacted thus far. AI governance. So yes, that is one of the main points here on this article. pjmedia.com. Pretty wild. Is Hillary next? Vance hints who's next in line for prosecution as Trump administration goes after the deep state. Yes, I still want to make my license plate, my bumper sticker on the back of my car ring as true as possible, because it reads Hillary for Prison 2016. And it looks like a presidential logo. So when you first glance at it, it looks like it says Hillary for President, but it doesn't. It says Hillary for Prison 2016. I want to make sure that comes true. Anyway, it's not going to happen in 2016, obviously, but it might happen soon. Who knows? Although I doubt it. Recent comments from J.D. Vance have some online commentators speculating that former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is on the list of potential targets as the Trump administration brings those who allegedly broke the law in the past to justice. You know, I just had a thought on this. How unbelievably happy would Bill Clinton be to get rid of his wife? Meaning, for Hillary to be put into the slammer. How happy would Bill Clinton be? I mean, not that he shouldn't have a cell right next to her. I'm not saying that, but it looks like they're going after Hillary first, according to this. Speculation exploded online after a grand jury chose to indict James Comey, which we mentioned that last week. In an ex-post, conservative media personality John Dunlap speculated that Vance's recent comments suggest that Hillary will be given a subpoena next. So we'll see. I don't know. I have my doubts. I'm a little dubious. WesternJournal.com is where that is. But that would be nice. Some of these people need to pay for their crimes. Okay, this one, speaking of which, lawandcrime.com. This guy is trying to kill me, quote unquote. Former NFL quarterback Mark Sanchez allegedly assaulted a 69-year-old worker who was trying to exchange cooking oil at a hotel. What in the world? Yeah, he got stabbed. Former NFL quarterback turned TV analyst Mark Sanchez was stabbed after he allegedly assaulted a worker who was dropping off cooking oil at an Indianapolis hotel in a bizarre attack that authorities are saying should never have happened. Yeah, you can pretty much say that about most crime. Prosecutors early Sunday released a probable cause affidavit that shined light on how the 38-year-old retired football star ended up stabbed and then arrested. Yeah, he got stabbed and they arrested him while he was in the hospital. Isn't that crazy? What is going on here? I mean, I don't know. This is one of those wacky stories that is just unfolded in a strange way. Earlier yesterday, I guess it was, officers arrived at this pub in downtown Indianapolis when they discovered Sanchez suffering from several stab wounds in the upper torso. In a nearby alley between the two hotels, they found a 69-year-old man with a laceration to his left cheek. So I'm not sure what happened to him, if he got probably hit maybe or something. I don't know. Paramedics rushed Sanchez to the hospital. When detectives tried to obtain a statement from him, all he could remember was grabbing for a window, cops wrote. He told investigators did not know who stabbed him or where it happened. So yes, of course he doesn't know. Anyways, very strange. So now you have NFL quarterbacks, former quarterbacks being stabbed by people over cooking oil. I mean, how weird is that? That's a strange one. Federal immigration officers came under violent attack from armed leftists in suburban Chicago, according to DHS. The DHS Assistant Secretary said on X that agents in Broadview were rammed by vehicles and boxed in by 10 cars. Unable to move, the agents exited their vehicles and encountered one of the drivers armed with a semi-automatic weapon. Wow. Law enforcement was forced to deploy their weapons and fire defensive shots. Man, that could have gotten ugly real fast. The armed driver was identified in a Customs and Border Protection intelligence bulletin just last week for allegedly doxing agents and inciting violence against them. The driver was wounded and transported to a hospital. Wow. So they're really lucky that no one has been, no protesters have been shot and killed yet. But I do feel like, if the left keeps it up, that could unfortunately be where it goes. So who knows? But that is not good. Not good at all. That's on Slay News. This Daily Signal article I've found, Harvard demonstrates how much America needs its research by hiring a drag queen professor. Amid its ongoing fight with Trump over whether Harvard University violated the civil rights of students and even deserves to receive millions of dollars from the American taxpayer, the school decided it was a smart idea to hire a literal drag queen to teach courses there. Yeah. Harvard University hired a drag performer as a new professor who's expected to teach a class on TV show RuPaul's Drag Race in the spring. Wow. I won't say what the name of the drag queen doing the teaching is. It's inappropriate, as they say. But yeah, how ridiculous. So someone at Harvard thought this was a great idea. I don't know. I guess you would if you were at Harvard. You might think that. Massive oil refinery breaks out near LA. Firefighters contained a large fire that broke out on Thursday night at Chevron's El Segundo oil refinery outside LA. Locals reported seeing flames from miles away after hearing an explosion. The blaze broke out in a southeastern corner of the refinery about 9:30 local time. According to a Friday morning update from the city, several local emergency crews responded alongside Chevron's fire crew and the El Segundo Fire Department. The flames were contained by Friday morning and posed no public safety threat, the city said. LeoHoman.com, let's see. Top articles, most recent ones. Weekly News Roundup, Maha is DOA. Pro-lifers betrayed Israel-Hamas peace pact and U.S. taxpayers foot the bill for Trump's AI surveillance state superstructure. That's exactly what it is. That's a good synopsis. Trump's AI surveillance state superstructure. Say that 10 times fast. Watch the video. Trap is set, war, collapse, digital prison, and more. Discuss with Minute to Midnight podcaster Tony. So Leo Homan was on Minute to Midnight, I guess. That was the other embedded post here. And then on Leo's Substack, that's still the topmost post on his Substack. U.S. cities will serve as good training ground for Department of War. Mentioned that earlier. Trump allies Bill Gates, Larry Ellison, Tony Blair push global digital IDs at World Government Summit. The beast system is here. It sure is. So that is Leo Homan's Substack, which is certainly worth subscribing to. Totally free. And this article I pulled up from Miss Emily. She's a lover of dogs, as many of us are. But she's a dog trainer, so I thought she might like to hear this story. New research links early dog exposure to drastic reduction in childhood asthma. How about that? New research reveals that infants in homes with high levels of dog allergens have nearly half the risk of developing asthma by age 5. Yeah, but I would think it would probably be like 0 risk of developing asthma if you don't take the stabbies. But of course, a 5-year-old doesn't have any say in that, do they? This study contradicts the long-standing guidance to keep children's environments ultra clean to prevent allergies and asthma, suggesting early exposure helps train the immune system. Yeah, that's why, many of us when we were kids were playing in all kinds of dirt and crazy stuff, and we had pretty good immune systems. Well, they don't let kids do that anymore. Many parents don't. The study found no similar reduction in asthma risk from early exposure to cat allergens, indicating the hygiene hypothesis is not a universal concept. So, sorry, kitty cat lovers, you know who you are. This only works for dogs. No, I don't know. The benefit of dog exposure was even stronger in children with a higher genetic risk for impaired lung function, showing environment can help mitigate genetic vulnerabilities. And then it gets into talking about genetics and environment, the feline exception in unanswered questions. What I was looking to see was if it talks about the stabbies at all. I don't see that in this article. But know that many allergies are a direct result of too many of those things you insert into your arm or into your kid's arm. That is what many, many allergies are developed from. Anyway, that is a Natural News article. Got several wine press Substacks I wanted to mention just because they all kind of go together and they all have to do what we were talking about earlier. Tokenization. United Nations publishes new framework for digital IDs while the world moves in lockstep as a means to enforce social credit scores. This is a moment to redefine our digital destiny. Part of the UN's promise includes driving progress on digital public infrastructure, the means to an end. Yeah, this is being talked about more and more and more, which tells me they must have some other major something planned for all of us. Because the CV-19 thing only got them so far. I don't know if they could do it in another virus and lockdown situation. I don't know if that would work again. On many people, I feel like it probably wouldn't. So it needs to be something different and far more scary. because everyone's talking about this now, as far as from the top down. In other words, from the unelected bureaucrats at the top down to people who are bloggers, talking about the digital IDs and the social credit score system and all of this working together. Oracle launches AI tool for government agricultural monitoring for world leaders to build resilient food systems at UN Assembly. Yeah, and I'm guessing they'll probably put Bill Gates in charge of it. Sounds like it would be right up his alley. It continuously monitors information and autonomously alerts users to issues, with results feeding back into the system to enhance future recommendations. An AI tool for government agricultural monitoring for world leaders. That's just what we need, isn't it? So that is a full Substack post as well on the Wine Press. One more from Wine Press as well. United Nations endorses digital ID system powered by blockchain, biometrics, AI, and geolocation technologies. That sounds like the Mark of the Beast system, doesn't it? Yeah. So anyways, there's quite a bit here on all of that subject matter. If you guys want to take a look, I do find it very interesting, and it seems like it's something we're all talking about more and more, which tells me it's pending. It's going to be happening very soon. Gavin Newsom just gave California's 800,000 Uber and Lyft drivers a one-way ticket to the unemployment line. Yeah. Governor Newsom just gave his state's Uber and Lyft drivers a one-way ticket to the unemployment line. He signed a landmark agreement on Friday that would allow Uber and Lyft drivers to form a union. The Democrats said at a press conference that the unionization deal will offer ride-hailing drivers a, quote, voice to give them choice, give them dignity, and a say about their future. I say that because it needs to be said. I am not naive about how people are feeling about their future, he explained. Isn't he loving and caring? Look at how happy they are. Even the guys in the turbans. Wow. So he thinks he's just so wonderful. He's helping all these rideshare people. But he's actually helping them right out of a job. You want to know why? You want to know why that's kind of... It's not funny, but it is kind of funny because he's fully taking credit for this. This last paragraph kind of sums it up. Yet, as well as make these companies less sympathetic to their drivers, it will also force them to accelerate their rollout of self-driving cars that will not require any human whatsoever. So, by forming this union and making sure that their pay increases, it's going to make the company owners like Uber and Lyft go even faster into the driverless car, the driverless rideshare route. And even as early as next year in certain cities, I know Tesla will have a program where you can download an update for your Tesla, and your car will be able to go out and do rideshare work while you're at home sleeping or while you're at work. Your car can be sent out, picking up people and taking them places and coming back to you. And you get to split the money with Tesla. They're literally doing that. They're already piloting this program in Austin, Texas. And that will be rolled out even faster now as a result of what Governor Newsom has done in California. And not just Tesla, you'll see these other companies also involved in that, which they probably already are to some degree, Lyft and Uber. And these people right here that Newsom thinks he's helping are going to be out of a job soon when everything is done by self-crashing cars. So it's kind of funny, but it's not really funny. You hate to see people out of work. On the other hand, many of the people that, especially in California, that have those types of jobs are illegals anyway. Not all, but many are. So that's pretty crazy. I came across this video and thought it was just worth mentioning, although I don't really think it tells us anything. Surveillance video shows Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin calmly refueling hours after the brutal murder. I think he was calmly refueling his car, most likely because he didn't do it. That's what I think. So I'll show you this video, and there's no sound, so I'll just kind of talk over the top of it. You can see him here in the maroon shirt. Looks like he has a hat on there too. And he's just, getting some gas. And he's not in any kind of hurry, and he's not running around in the parking lot and waving his arms saying, I just killed Charlie Kirk or anything like that. No, he's just putting gas in his car like one might do. They're saying this is him, which who knows if it really is him, but it does kind of look like him from a distance. And what I was going to skip to was, check out the car that he's driving. I haven't really heard too many say what kind of car he had. But he's driving, I guess what one could consider a muscle car. Here it is here. Pretty nice car for a college kid, huh? And there he goes, taking off. And yes, they're saying here that he just committed the murder and now he's gassing up the car. Why wouldn't he have done that ahead of time? I mean, how dumb are we supposed to be? And is he going from there right over to Dairy Queen to get him his nugs and a blizzy? Is that what he's doing? Because that's kind of what it looks like. Anyway, I just find the whole thing a bit unbelievable. So yeah, Dodge Challenger. That's what kind of car it was. Anyway, I don't know. I just thought I would point that out just because I hadn't seen that video footage anywhere, and I don't think it really matters at all because it doesn't prove anything other than if he was, somehow involved. It gives you a bit of a timeline, I suppose. And like many things, there's no timestamp on anything that they're ever even showing. So how, what do you really learn? So, he's going to be a patsy, if nothing else, and hopefully he will stay alive because I personally don't think the kid did it. I don't even know that he was involved in any way. I think that it was a professional hit sort of operation and possibly a military operation. Who knows what military it was, if it was a military, but there are some likely culprits, and I think we all know who I'm talking about. And not just that country that you're thinking of, but others as well. Could be Ukraine, could be the CIA, could be, an American involvement. Maybe they wanted to get rid of him. It's really hard to say. But the new surveillance video is pretty much worthless, in my opinion. Experts warn that Utah taxpayers will likely end up paying 8-figure bill to defend Tyler Robinson. So for you Utahns out there, you're going to be footing the bill here for his legal team. Defense of Tyler Robinson, the man accused of assassinating Kirk, could leave Utah taxpayers with the bill into the millions, potentially even exceeding $10 million. Yeah. I don't know. It doesn't really seem like they have much of a case against this kid, which would mean a smaller bill, in my opinion. Of course, attorneys charge what they charge. Don't get me wrong. But, I just don't see how, given the lack of evidence they actually have to tie him to anything, and the fact that they want him to be the scapegoat here means that they have to have either a prosecutor in their back pocket or a judge or both or something like that, whoever it is that is trying to convict this kid, because they don't have much of a case, in my opinion. Anyway, that one's on Gateway Pundit. And then this one, too. Thought this one was weird. An illegal alien hired as the superintendent, but his criminal records were just released. In 2023, the Des Moines School Board appointed this guy, Roberts, as superintendent of schools, granting him one of the most lucrative contracts in Iowa public education. But he wasn't even a teacher. His base salary began at $270,000 in a state where teachers routinely earn less than $50,000. Yes, but he had the right skin color, you can see. That figure alone should have drawn scrutiny. But what makes this case far more disturbing is not the salary, but the man who received it. Roberts was an illegal immigrant with a criminal record that stretched back decades. Department of Homeland Security has now released the full timeline of Roberts' immigration and criminal history. He first entered the U.S. in 1994 on a tourist visa. By 1996, he was arrested in New York for narcotics possession with intent to sell, and forgery and a possession of a forged instrument. 2 years later, he was charged in Queens for unauthorized use of a vehicle. None of this prevented him from re-entering the country multiple times on student visas, filing for work permits, and applying repeatedly for permanent residency. The application was denied again and again in 2001 and in 2018 and in 2020. Yet, Roberts remained moving through the system while adding new offenses to his record. In 2012, he was convicted in Maryland for reckless driving. In 2020, he faced weapons charges. 2022, he was convicted in Pennsylvania for unlawful possession of a loaded firearm. So it sounds like, a perfect candidate to be a superintendent of a school system, doesn't he? Imagine that. So it goes on and talks about how that actually happened. So why in the world was he hired? That's the question. I don't know. Made a pretty good chunk of change, though. I don't know. Very strange. That's a Gateway Pundit article. And then I mentioned canceling Netflix earlier. This is another article about that. Resurfaced Babysitters Club and Strawberry Shortcake shows feature young transgender characters and themes. Netflix is once again in the crosshairs of conservative parents and critics after controversial clips from its 2020 series, The Babysitters Club, and 2021 through 24 series, Strawberry Shortcake. Barry in the Big City resurfaced and went viral on social media. Yeah, this is why Musk was saying to shut off your Netflix subscriptions. Anyway, cancel Netflix. That seems to be a pretty much sentiment across X anyway. I don't know, probably other places as well. Here you can see the the female characters kissing each other. So yes, that's not exactly what you want your little kids to take part in as far as watching. So canceling Netflix would be a good option. Gateway Pundit, another article here. End of Hollywood, ? OpenAI's latest video generator called Sora 2, S-O-R-A, Sora 2, may finally kill off the film industry. Is this finally the end of Hollywood? OpenAI this week unveiled Sora 2, a video generator app that many analysts are warning could spell the end of Hollywood and the wider film industry. Sora 2 can do things that are exceptionally difficult and in some instances outright impossible for prior video generation models. And what it's saying here are things like Olympic gymnastic routines, backflips on a paddleboard that accurately model the dynamics of buoyancy and rigidity, and triple axels while a cat holds on for dear life. So that's just a sort of a text-based example. Let me play this one. This is a Sora 2 video. I'm going to mute it just because I don't have the audio run through the live stream system here. It's a different way that I have to do that. But you can see that's supposed to be SpongeBob sitting in the car. This is generated by AI. None of this is real. Look how real it looks. From the shine on the car to SpongeBob's mouth moving and holding on to the steering wheel. Here, let me blow it up a little bit. And again, we're not hearing the audio. There is audio with this, but you have cars driving on the road back here and a nice white sky, like it's heavily chemtrailed. That's pretty real. And there goes SpongeBob driving off in the car. Isn't that strange? Now, that was just a short clip, but that just gives you an idea what could be done with AI. Here's another one. This is Pikachu, I guess, in Saving Private Ryan, except it's saving Private Pikachu, apparently. So, it's pretty amazing what you can do with AI and video. Now, right now, from what I gather, at least the consumer versions of what is available, you can only make really short clips. Like this is a 10-second clip. The SpongeBob one was a 10-second clip. And, that'll take AI quite a while just to make that 10-second clip. So creating a whole movie out of AI, it probably isn't really that feasible at this point, but it's just a matter of time until, it gets there. So I think it's pretty interesting. Will it mean the end of Hollywood? I think, unfortunately, probably not. But you can see where they're going with it and why they're talking about that even now. And just as an example of something very simple, I used AI to create video out of a image that I created for Anthony Patch when we were working on one of his magazines. And we needed to have undersea cables coming out of the water. And I took a still image of the undersea cables that I had and run it through AI and told it to make it move like a snake. And you can see exactly what it was doing in the background here. So it moves like a snake, and that was generated by AI. Now look at this. Now this snake was a still picture. I took this still picture of a snake by a piece of wood and fed it into AI and told it to animate the snake and make it look real. You have to use certain keywords and things like that in the prompt to get the desired results. But keep in mind, this picture right here of this snake by the log was a still photo, and watch this. It's moving around like an actual snake might. And then I looped the footage and then ran it backwards as well. That's why it goes back down, because I needed it to be a little bit longer than it was. But you can see how creating something that is 100% believable using AI is actually really easy for anyone to do. So I just wanted to point that out, just saying that, based on what this article is talking about, I can see where it's going and how everyone would have access to that. So that is pretty wild. All right, let's keep moving here. Not to be. Speaking of AI, this one's a kind of an interesting and funny use of AI video. China is using AI to turn gay wedding scenes into straight wedding scenes. Yes, you heard that right. And what might be the best use of AI since that guy on Twitter got in trouble for fixing Disney's Little Mermaid, the Chinese studio called His Show used AI to edit U.S. horror movie called Together, changing out a gay marriage scene. His Show used AI to turn one of the guys, right here, into a woman and make a traditional wedding scene. Adam and Steve to Adam and Eve, this post says. So you can see here the top picture has the male here along with another male, and they turned this guy, using AI, they turned this guy into her. Ta-da, it says. Wow. Anyway, let's move on here. We've got another couple more, not the B articles, but we're reaching the end here. We're getting there. Tim Burchett wants to call Netflix execs to testify before Congress about woke kids shows. So something we've been talking about quite a bit tonight. Pretty interesting that it looks like Congress is interested here. Elon Musk has been leading the charge to cancel Netflix this week. Now members of Congress are jumping on the train. Tim Burchett of Tennessee, I think he's in East Tennessee, wants to bring Netflix executives in front of Congress to answer for their woke and pro-queer programming decisions. Yes, and, Trump has written executive orders about this type of thing, and they don't really seem to be listening, so they just do what they want. Note the timing of this tweet, 11:11. They need to be brought in. We need to find out what their agenda is and why they're pushing this stuff, because from what I understand, that little cartoon is apparently the #1 rated cartoon that they have. Burchett was careful to couch his answer with an acknowledgement of the First Amendment right of free speech, but believes the public deserves answers. So he was on with Benny Johnson, I guess. I'll let you all debate this one, but I can guarantee this. Watching Netflix squirm in front of Congress is more popcorn-worthy than anything on their platform is. Anyway, that one's on Not the Bee, and then another Cracker Barrel ongoing saga here. Just wanted to give you an update. Cracker Barrel fires California marketing agency behind the failed rebrand. More progress is being made in the great Cracker Barrel war of 2025. No, the CEO has not been axed yet, but there is some real accountability for the company's disastrous, now abandoned rebrand. Cracker Barrel has fired the marketing agency that created its rebrand. So yeah, they'll probably automatically go to work for Bud Light or something. I don't know. The damage has already been done, but at least the people behind it are no longer associated with the brand? ? So that you have an idea how soulless their marketing partner is, here's a video showcasing their vision. This is the consulting firm that Cracker Barrel chose to do that disastrous rebranding. It worked for a well-known consulting firm after college. Most of what these firms do is a scam, and many of the projects sold are just executive friends hooking each other up. Wow. What about the CEO? That's next. Yeah, we all saw her. She was super woke looking and said that everybody was super excited about rebranding to the new Cracker Barrel, and when in fact that was not exactly true. Anyway, that's a Not the Bee article. This one, I pulled this up because it's showing that there is yet again another King Charles portrait. And I'm like, uh-oh, how evil is this one going to be? Well, this one is a bit different. It's actually a portrait that's not a painting. It's simply a photograph. Scottish Parliament hosts unveiling of King Charles portrait by Princess Anne. Anyway, you can see here, that's what the portrait is. It's literally just a picture of him. So the coming Antichrist in photograph. The striking photograph taken by Millie Pilkington last autumn. That's her, I guess. Wearing a kilt. Because Charles likes to wear kilts. The more dresses, the better. Anyway. So I thought that was pretty funny just because, you know, it's not the evil portrait as far as the way that painting looked last time, but here's a kind of a still shot here. It's certainly evil enough, but not quite as evil as the other one, the all red one where he had the Baphomet. You know, people were flipping it around and inverting things, and you get the Baphomet picture of Baphomet essentially, and all these other weird, creepy things as far as that goes. You had the butterfly and the monarch butterfly and all that stuff. Anyway, just thought I would mention it. But that is a Royal Family Channel YouTube video, so they want to put him in as good of light as possible. I came across this one too. I mentioned him last week and then on and off really for the last few years about the rabbi here, Rabbi Shlomo Yehuda Berry. There's a separate website here. I can't really confirm for sure or not that it's his official website, but I did find one and thought it was kind of interesting that there's a whole site dedicated to him and prayers and melodies, I guess, you know, because he's a music guy, and then lessons and leaflets as well. And I'll link to this in the Substack post that I sent out, but I thought that was kind of wild. So if you guys want to learn anything else about this rabbi, there is an English version of this website, so there's you know, quite a bit you can glean from this site, although I'm sure that the speaking and things like that on the videos are going to be in Hebrew. So anyway, pretty wild though that the whole website is really dedicated to him. And I do think that he will probably end up being one of the two Moshiachs, not the person who would be the military Moshiach. I do think that'll be King Charles, believe it or not. And then this guy would be the other Moshiach as well. So, I don't know. It's worth looking at. And again, we'll link to this website in the Substack post. I think it's pretty wild. And then I wanted to mention this one too, just because I know there's probably some other James Bond film fans out there. I was, as a kid, was a big Bond film. I liked all of the Bond films when I was a kid. I grew up watching a bunch of them, which may explain some things for me personally. I don't know. But yeah, this article on modernity.news I think kind of sums it up. Stop getting Bond wrong. Now they just look gay as you know what. Amazon Prime has taken the decision to digitally erase James Bond's gun from the promotional posters of every single Bond film ever made. It's not just the gun, though. They also removed all the women, all the girls in the movie posters. Now, this is, of course, just for the Amazon rebrand. The streaming giant has acquired the rights to the franchise and is relaunching it, but apparently without the spy having a license to kill. The blatant digital manipulation of some of the posters, leaving the actors' hands in odd positions, make them look, frankly, gay as F. Removed the guns, and again, removed the girls too, which that's a big part of the story, obviously. Well, here's a Dr. No before and after. You can see the new version. He's not holding the gun, and then GoldenEye, he's just got his hand up there again, sort of awkwardly. So before and after, and here, man with the golden gun, but there's no gun. Beat to a kill, and others. So, yeah, they just look awful. That pretty much sums it up. That's what one of those tweets said. And here's another article about this coming from a slightly different perspective. This is a Gateway Pundit article. But I wanted to just kind of get it on the record. This is the original movie posters here, or many of them. You know, and they were works of art in and of themselves, and you can see how Amazon is ruining them. These are the originals here that we're looking at. Some of them are probably releases for other countries and things like that. But you can see how involved they were and how integrated and integral they were as far as how important they were in the movies. And now you just have these boring ones. So welcome to the now. Welcome to total political correctness, aka modern times, and then trying to make Bond fit into that political correctness world somehow. It just doesn't, to me, it doesn't work. Anyway, very strange. VaccineImpact.com. We've got a few new articles here on this site. United States of America is cursed for rejecting the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's the top most recent article here. This one is about AI. Corporate financial analysis wake up to the great AI bubble. AI bubble is 17 times larger than the dot-com bubble. Wow. Farmageddon. Farmers across the U.S. sound the alarm on the disaster that's unfolding from Trump's tariffs. So that's a few of the top articles here. Here's one about TikTok as well, and Israel, of course. And then GeoWatch for this week. Global Alert News, October 4th, Climate Wars. Chemical winter weather warfare is already being scheduled for some regions of the U.S., even though record summer heat persists. Shock October heat wave. I know it's been real hot here where I am. In Canada, keep the AC on. Canada. October heat wave brings summer back to Ontario. The climate engineering cover-up script reading scheduled weather experts, quote unquote, in the U.S. seem to always know where coming select surface flash freezes will occur even months in advance. Welcome to climate engineered Earth, aka weather warfare. So that is Global Alert News for October 4th. So Saturday's post. So another good one from Mr. Dane. So feel free to look at that if you want, geoengineeringwatch.org. And then scheduled weather for this week looks a lot like it did last time. You kind of have the split down the middle, more or less, although the middle's further west. But you have the below normal side and then the above normal side. Again, not natural. That is not nature doing that. It's just very strange looking. But anyways, that's what's in store for us. I guess where I am here, it's going to be a little warmer than normal. But yeah, it's certainly been warm the last few days. ClimateAndEconomy.com, October 4th roundup of climate headlines. I'll let you guys look at these if you guys are interested. But there's more about record rainfall and desertification and all kinds of stuff. Lots of flash floods. Here's climate change threatening the farmers in Mauritania. Well, it's actually called geoengineering. You can call it climate change if you want, but it's climate change on purpose. Israeli airstrikes in South Lebanon spark forest fires. Imagine that. Forest fires from war. So there's quite a few headlines here. Again, things you don't see in the mainstream media that do back up the idea that the Earth is in some form of meltdown from a climatological aspect. So anyway, climateandeconomy.com is where that is. Israel 365. I thought this one was pretty interesting just because of the perspective that they usually have versus what seems to be being brought forth in this article. The ADL's leftist political activism has replaced its Jewish mission. So, talking about the ADL, you would think Israel 365 News would only have positive things to say when it comes to the ADL. Well, it doesn't seem like it. Here's what this says. The Anti-Defamation League, once America's foremost Jewish defense organization, is facing a major backlash after years of political drift. Following the assassination of Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk, outrage erupted when it was revealed that the ADL had listed his organization as, quote, extremist. Yeah, them and anyone else who was conservative at all. The truth is that the ADL has abandoned its founding mission to fight anti-Semitism in favor of partisan left-wing activism. So that's where they're going with it. As this rabbi says, executive director of Center for Jewish Christian Understanding and Cooperation, warned labeling America First as anti-Semitic is a strategic blunder that pushes millions of patriotic conservatives away from Israel. What was once a unifying Jewish institution has now alienated Jews, Christians, and even the FBI, who has officially cut ties with the organization, which is what we mentioned at the beginning of the show tonight. So, I thought that was pretty wild. You know, it seems like they're being somewhat honest here. They are saying that their original founding mission was to fight anti-Semitism, which they just label anything anti-Semitism now if you are just simply disagreeing with stuff that comes out of Israel. Then you're an anti-Semite. But yeah, it's become a left-wing radical organization for sure, just like the SPLC, Southern Poverty Law Center, has. All right, and then Diamond Report on X. I think I retweeted a few things this week, so let's see here. I came across this article, which is probably only important if you live in Nashville, which I do, and this is talking about Nashville from the standpoint of the transformation that's underway from the influx of illegals. And I think you could take what they're talking about, though, in this and superimpose this to other cities as well, because it's happening everywhere that there's a city. Anywhere that there's a fairly large city, it's happening. They're bringing in illegals. Now, even though Trump has shut off the border crisis from that perspective, it's still happening. Those people are still here, many of them. And that is what this particular interview is talking about from Border Hawk. Enter Nashville, how mass migration is destroying Music City, USA. Sanctuary City, Nashville is caught in the throes of radical transformation as a steady stream of third world migrants pour in while U.S. citizens cut and run from Music City, USA. So anyway, that's what this particular article is about. The top one on my X account, at least at the moment. And it's certainly worth a watch. I thought it was a good interview. We are the only species that sprays food with poison so that other animals won't eat it, and then we eat it ourselves. That was a pretty good meme. And then we were talking a lot about Netflix tonight, so this was a funny one that I retweeted. You have the people trying to squeeze the box spring or mattress or whatever into this sedan, which the box spring is labeled as a tranny. And then this is Netflix trying to shove it into the car, which is literally any show. Yep, that kind of sums it up. And then we have last week's show, Trump's Ukraine U-turn after meeting King Charles III. So those are the most recent tweets on the Diamond Report on X. I would appreciate a follow. If you happen to be on there, you can find me pretty easily, hopefully. The Diamond Report on X, it's just the Diamond RPRT. So there's that, and then Substack, which is the main mechanism to get on the email list. Just drop your email address in there and click subscribe. It's super easy to do. The QR code in the upper left corner up there, though, happens to be for Subscribestar at the moment. I swapped it out when you guys weren't looking. It's a different one. So yeah, if you want to scan the QR code at any point, that will take you to Subscribestar, and you can read about some of the various tiers and things like that are available there if you do want to support what I'm doing on the Diamond Report Live. If you do, I certainly appreciate that, and definitely need the help. I did lose a subscriber on a paid subscriber on Substack the other day, so we're down to, I think, 7 on each platform at this point instead of 8 and 7. So 14 wonderful people are helping me put this show on the air, and so thank you guys very much for helping me do that. You know who you are, and I certainly appreciate that. Just like I appreciate your support in just simply being here tonight. So thank you guys. So here's the YouTube channels I mentioned early at the beginning of the show here, I guess. Diamond Disc, I added the Diamond Report so people know what it is, but Diamond Disc on YouTube, that is the Resurrected channel, the new one that's back, and then this is the backup channel now, which is Take It to the Lord in Prayer in Times Dates. So those are the two YouTube channels, so please subscribe, please share. I certainly appreciate that. If you can't give financially, I totally understand, and again, no pressure, like I always say, and sharing the videos are usually a pretty easy and hopefully inviting type of thing to do. You know, if you can share this news program with other people who might be interested, people who are interested in end times situations, people who just want to hear what's going on in the world. Diamond Disc on Rumble as well as BitChute right here, and Brighteon as well. So thank you guys for being here tonight. And then the band group, of course, which Miss Emily may have posted the links for in chat. She usually does. And the Diamond Report on Band is the group that we have with people who are followers of the show, and you can go in there and post what you're researching, things you're looking at, and have a conversation with people. And I would just mention, as I always do, it's not a dating site, but it is a good way to meet other people and share common interests, hopefully. So that is the Diamond Report on Band, and then BitChute, Rumble, Brighteon, and YouTube is where the show is. Also ends up on Facebook as well. I don't have that tab pulled up, but you guys can find it on there. It's the Diamond Report on Facebook. So thank you guys again for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. Thank you for hanging out with me for the last 2.5 hours or whatever it's been. So I guess we can call it a night tonight. We can play one more video on the way out, I suppose. And the next show will be a week from tonight, which would be what? What is that? The 12th. October 12th, Sunday night, 10 p.m. Central Time will be the start time as usual. Yeah, thank you, Miss Emily. I appreciate that. She says, thanks for another great show. Yeah, God bless you guys and protect you as well. And hope you guys have a really good week this coming week. We will see how things unfold, and we will do it again next week. So, sounds good to me, and hopefully it does to you guys as well. We'll play one more video on the way out. I've got one more here I thought was another good one called You Are Here. So let's close with that. I love you guys, and we will see you guys next week. We'll do it again then, and if you have any questions, feel free to drop me a message in Band if you happen to be in there, or just a comment on any of the videos, especially YouTube. I definitely see those pretty quickly. So thanks for being here, you guys, and blessings to you all, and keep Jesus in your life front and center. That's what matters, and your family as well. And man, it's a crazy, crazy time period we are in right now, but I definitely think we are in the end times like so many of you guys do as well. So love you all. I'll talk to you again real soon.
Albert Pike joined the Fraternal Independent Order of Oddfellows in 1840. By 1859, he was elected Sovereign Grand Commander of the Scottish Rite's Southern Jurisdiction and remained Sovereign Grand Commander for the rest of his life. He was definitely aware of Zionism, and if this Illuminati plan is true, then his use of the word Nazi is plausible. Either way, the letter is worth a read, and the closer we get to the end game, the more accurate this letter appears to be.
Albert Pike served as a brigadier general in the Confederate Army. Following the war, Pike was jailed for treason. He was quickly pardoned by a fellow Freemason, President Andrew Johnson. Among eventually becoming a 33-degree Mason and a top leader of the Ku Klux Klan, Pike was also believed to be a Luciferian. He claimed he was able to summon Lucifer at will as the Grand Master of the Order of the Palladium. Palladism, or traditional Satanism, an ancient Luciferian cult, was then introduced to the inner circle of the Masonic lodges. This influence has flourished into modern-day Freemasonry in the super rites of the upper degrees. Industry, entertainment, the CIA, Congress, and our military leaders are inundated with Freemasonic Palladism, or a Luciferian New World Order. What follows are the chilling predictions, or better yet, instructions of Albert Pike's 3 world wars, funded in great part by the House of Rothschild. From a letter that he wrote to 33-degree Italian Illuminati head and mafia founder Giuseppe Mazzini, dated August 15, 1871. The First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the power of the czars in Russia and of making that country a fortress of atheistic communism. The divergences caused by the agentures of the Illuminati between the British and Germanic empires will be used to foment this war. At the end of the war, communism will be built and used in order to destroy the other governments, in order to weaken the religions. The Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. This war must be brought about so that Nazism is destroyed and that the political Zionism be strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel in Palestine. During the Second World War, international communism must become strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would be then restrained and held in check until the time when we would need it for the final social cataclysm. The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agentur of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionism, the State of Israel, mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery and of the most bloody turmoil. Then, everywhere,
The citizens, obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries, will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude, disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in the public view. This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement, which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. A bizarre letter indeed. And a red flag may have gone off when you heard the term Nazism, but the term Nazism was known to those in the Illuminati at that time. Will we allow this madness to unfurl unabated, or will we put a halt to it before it's too late?
In February of 2025, researchers from the CAFRE Research Project, including Dr. Nicole Sicolo, Professor Filippo Biondi, Dr. Armando Mi, and Professor Corrado Malanga, announced the detection of extensive subterranean anomalies beneath the Pyramid of CAFRE. Utilizing SAR technology, or synthetic aperture radar, in collaboration with Capella Space, the team identified chambers, corridors, and vertical shafts extending at least 1 kilometer deep, or 3,280 feet deep, with dimensions mirroring the pyramid scale.
Can advanced technology be lost and rediscovered centuries later? Is it possible that an ancient culture had knowledge of and used electrical power? When such electrons are given the chance to bypass sections of rock via metal wire, quite large currents can flow. Limestone, dolomite, granite, supposedly constructed for a tomb, are, in fact, analogous to the exact materials we use to make electrical wires. They also share a relationship with pressure, which increases their electroconductivity. In 1993, a mysterious and inaccessible room was discovered after remaining hidden for thousands of years. Appearing to have deliberately been concealed by the structure's engineers, the room came to be called the Queen's Chamber and was finally explored in 2011 with a small remote camera to reveal a long-lost mummy? Hardly. It contained carefully crafted copper wire, and more importantly, there were instructions painted as symbols onto the floor, which appeared to show a clear wiring diagram.
Is what we are witnessing the unveiling of a massive ancient power source? Or is there more to this potentially human history-altering discovery? Edgar Cayce, a Kentucky-born psychic who gave 14,000 trance readings in the early 20th century, spoke extensively about a hidden hall of records tied to ancient civilizations, particularly Atlantis and Egypt. Cayce's take, straight from his readings, was that this hall of records is a literal time capsule buried near the Great Sphinx at Giza, Egypt. He pinpointed it between the Sphinx and the river, saying it holds the history of Atlantis, stashed by survivors around 10,500 BC. He described 3 such halls worldwide, one under Giza, another in the Bahamas near Bimini, and a third in the Yucatan. The Egyptian one, he said, is linked to the Sphinx's right paw, with chambers leading to a pyramid-shaped vault packed with tablets and artifacts. Cayce also tied its discovery to a global wake-up call, saying it'd be unearthed when humanity's ready for a shift during changes in the Earth. Since the early 2000s, the speed at which the poles have shifted increased to around 34 miles per year, with a total displacement over the past 40 years of roughly 620 to 683 miles from its position in the mid-80s. Cayce's predictions have been tied to the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, the Atlantean, translated by Maurice Doreal. Its origins are debated, with some viewing it as a modern esoteric creation. It claims to channel Thoth, an Atlantean priest-king who shaped early Egyptian civilization. The tablets describe the halls as a hidden complex beneath the earth, serving as a repository of Atlantean knowledge and a portal for spiritual evolution. The recent Giza findings, vast, unexplained subterranean structures, align with these narratives, particularly Thoth's claim of a building beneath the pyramids. Yet the leap from radar anomalies to a 36,000-year-old Atlantean complex requires further investigation that the Egyptian government is unwilling to undertake.
The incredible thing about what they're doing is this is space-based. They're using space-based platforms to do this. And I think that's one of the reasons why they may be able to circumvent some of the restrictions placed by the Egyptian government, because what are you going to do about satellites passing over your region taking scans? At this point, I think that's just fair game until they create rules against it, which they're probably hurriedly trying to do in the light of these revelations.
John Bound reporting for InfoWars.